Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited that you're here and joining us. I know we are particularly excited about today's guest. We have Steve Baer joining us. And for those that don't know, he is the business partner to Eddie Villa. And if you don't know who Eddie Villa is, he is actually, he and him are the co-founders of this Unleash Your Strengths program. And I'm a member of that community, and it really is life-changing. So it's amazing what we can do when we understand who we are and how we can optimize our strengths. So a little bit about Steve. He and his wife are golds in doTERRA, and prior to Unleash Your Strengths, he was the co-founder of the e-commerce store Your Oil Tools, and his number 34 strength, or the bottom strength, is achiever. And he says he's out to prove to the world that you can be a low achiever and have everything you ever want. And I love that so much because I feel like that's very much in alignment with kind of just what the strengths are all about, understanding that we don't have to try to be somebody we're not in order to succeed and grow wherever we are planted. So Steve, without further ado, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for that awesome introduction. I'm thrilled to be here and nice to meet you all. I know Stephanie Scoville. Hey. You look like you're on the beach or something, but it's not beach. It's just outdoors. You look good. It's Arizona, right? It's Arizona.
Beautiful.
So Megan, you want me to just kind of jump in and share a few things, or do you have a question you want to lead off with? Or
yeah, so my first question is, I know that everybody here has different experiences with the strengths, so I'd love if you want to first touch on briefly what are the strengths and why are they important, and then we'll jump into, I know specifically our group would find a lot of value from understanding how to do a business their own way, not how everybody else thinks they should, how to do social media their own way, and maybe even how to optimize their relationship with their assistant or their client, since I know that we have both here on the call today. So do you want to start with maybe just what are strengths? Why are they important? Why is your program different than others?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So much to cover in that question. So the Gallup Strengthsfinder program, of course, is something that's been around for a long time, and it's mostly been used within the corporate world. And so some of you might have a top 5 strengths report because you had a job where they said, hey, we're doing this Strengthsfinder thing. Let's have everybody do their top 5. And the rest of you might have your top 5 because doTERRA integrated strengths into the doTERRA culture starting, I think, in 2018. I think it was leadership of 2018. And so ultimately what ended up happening is doTERRA brought in strengths, and I think a lot of us said, okay, great, another personality assessment, sounds okay, whatever. And Eddie had that same approach, but he began to do a deep dive into strengths and discovered a few nuances to it that Gallup wasn't teaching. And so ultimately he wrote a book, worked with people, over 1,000 people for free, just to interview them about their strengths, to understand it better, came up with a few theories that we feel have been proven to be true based on our experience with working with thousands of people. And so now what we do is we have a coaching community where people can come in and learn their strengths, learn from each other, learn from a group of people who are invested in mastering their strengths and mastering life while living in their strengths. So it's a journey, and it's something that continues to evolve for people, and it's a lot of fun. But I thought maybe what I'd do is I'd share a couple of things about strengths and how Gallup teaches it versus how Eddie teaches, or even how doTERRA has taught it versus how Eddie teaches strengths. So first thing is that when you look at a strengths report, the golden rule that we teach people is that strengths is not about what you can or can't do. It's about how you do everything your way. And so somebody, like, we see this all the time where somebody has a strengths profile that almost looks like they're an engineer. Like they've got all of the little things. It's like, yep, they would be a perfect engineer, but they're doing doTERRA. And so it doesn't, so just because you have a strengths report that says X, Y, or Z doesn't mean that you are, it's not an aptitude test. It doesn't say you're pigeonholed into such and such career or career path. And we also are finding that a lot of people who are attracted to doTERRA are those who are what we call relationship builders. They have a lot of the relationship building domains. If you're looking at a strengths report, look for strengths that have the blue square next to them. Those are relationship builders. And the way we define a relationship builder is somebody that has 3 or more relationship building strengths in their top 10, which means that it's important to them to be connected to the right people. And so ultimately, a lot of what we see among the doTERRA universe is a lot of relationship builders who love to connect with people, love to put oils on them, love to love on people. But what we see in the leadership of doTERRA is a lot more influencers, people who have high kind of orange, that orange strength. And Megan, you can speak to this because you're an influencer executor, right? Yeah. And so lots of leaders have lots of influencing strength, especially the people that we put on stage at doTERRA leadership meetings and at convention, lots of people with influencing strengths. And as a result, what people feel, or that they begin to think, is that they can only do doTERRA if they have those strengths. Oh, I see such and such person who is an amazing double blue diamond, and she has all of these gifts and talents to speak on stage and to get people moving and to you know, lots of command, lots of competition, high achiever. They got it all. And oh, I can't be that person. And so then they stop. They get de-energized by the process of doing doTERRA because they either think that they have to be that person to be successful, or they try to be that kind of person and then find themselves getting de-energized through the process of building a business. And so 1, 2, or 3 years later, you see a lot of people saying, you know, I need to take a break. I'm on a sabbatical from doTERRA. I just need to give myself some time and some space. Well, why are they saying that? They're saying it because they've worked themselves really hard and they don't like who they've become and they don't like how they feel.
And I can't tell you how many of my clients come to me feeling like this, especially when they're first getting ready to hire an assistant. They say, I'm drained. And even these are like high ranking leaders, like blue diamonds or above, who are making, you know, $10,000, $30,000 a month sometimes, and they're like ready to quit their business because they're overwhelmed. And they keep coming to me and say, well, I was at leadership retreat and I saw all these new programs and things that so-and-so is doing. I think I probably have to do that in order for me to be successful. And so we try to help them understand a little bit more that, but do you though, like, is that new shiny program going to serve you and how you do your business authentically? So I'm excited to hear a little bit more what you think about how people can use their own strengths and feel like they can do it and make it re-energize their business just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Eddie did a webinar about this recently. And in fact, if you aren't following Eddie on social media, it's just Eddie Villa, Villa. And he's actually doing a free webinar on Saturday morning. But we did a webinar recently where we talked about 4 main problems that we see in doTERRA businesses. And one is the problem of comparison, of people comparing themselves to other leaders. And just like Megan talked about, another thing is the authenticity, trying to be somebody that they're not in order to build a business. Another problem was vulnerability, where people feel like they have to be perfect and all put together in order to be a great leader, that they can't possibly share the things that they've suffered through, that they've struggled with, and how they've overcome those things in order and be successful. They can't kind of put that out there and say, hey, there's hope. And then the other thing is gimmicks. You know, we've seen over 10 years of the doTERRA, you know, life cycle. At the beginning, there were no systems. from year 1 through 3 or 4. And then from year 5 through 8, it was like system, like, and, you had 6 or 8 different systems. And most of those systems, were built around tools and supplies and, strategies. And then going back to, I think 2018 or 19, doTERRA was like, okay, there's really one system, it's empowered success. And, oh, by the way, now with empowered success, let's go back to basics. And we've had people who go through the back to basics program and they said, I hated every minute of it. And other people who said, this has been wonderful. I love back to basics. And the reason you get that wide variety of feeling towards these different systems and programs is because people have different strengths. And so the Back to Basics program is built for influencer executors like Elise. People who are like, I got to move my people forward and I got to give them a series of step-by-steps so they can get the job done. And then you have relationship builders or strategic thinkers who are like, I need to know more, or I need to just feel more connected to my people. And they decide that they can't do the business because they're relationship builders or because they don't have the right strengths. And then recently we had a top leader tell us that they don't like using strengths in their business because what they have seen is somebody would get their strengths report and they would look at it and they'd say, oh, see, here's proof. Here is proof that I can't build the business. So peace out, I'm gone.
I've had people tell me that actually when they tell me their strengths, because I like to get my clients' strengths just to get a familiarity with a little bit about them and what motivates them. And so I'd love for you maybe to break down those 4 themes and how someone, whether it's doTERRA or another business or an assistant, how can they use that strength to do their business authentically?
Totally. Megan, would you give me permission to share my screen?
Absolutely. There you go.
Awesome. Okay. So in strengths, there are 4 domains. And so this is something that Eddie teaches that is different than Gallup. Gallup has all of the strengths categorized into domains, but Eddie was like, well, what does it mean for the domains to be what they are and to have certain strengths and certain number of strengths in each domain in your top 10? And so these are the desires of people of each domain. So for relationship building, the dominant desire is to connect with the right people. And right people is something that they get to decide. If they have high includer, then the right people can be lots of people. And if they have high relator, the right people might be a small group. Then influencing, the desire is to move people forward. It's to help them make decisions, help them become better, to take them to the next level. And so that's why you see a lot of that. And that's what attracts influencers to doTERRA. It's because we're all moving forward. I'm moving forward. We're all rank advancing. We're all reaching our goals. Strategic thinking, the dominant desire is to think, create, and or learn, which means that somebody with with 3 or more strategic thinking strengths in their top 10 enjoy the process of being creative or just thinking and learning, of absorbing information and making that information available to other people, or to learn information just for their own nourishment and benefit. For example, there's a strength called learner, and the learner strength likes to learn for the sake of learning. And so there are people that have learner in their top 10, and they're all like, I'm always doing courses, I'm always doing this program and then this thing, and they shame themselves for being perpetual learners. But the fact of the matter is that that's right there in their strengths report. They get to be perpetual learners. They get to say, oh my gosh, I'm so energized by taking courses online. This is the best. And where those people can build their business more effectively, for example, is that they put their knowledge on display. They let people know what they know instead of holding it back and saying, well, maybe people don't care. No, hey, guess what? This is what I learned today. I've been taking this awesome course on such and such thing, and I've learned this, 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 and this. Put it on display. And then people are like, oh my gosh, you're an expert on that. Maybe I need to start paying attention to you because you're an expert. Yes, you should, because I'm an expert. Okay. Executing. The dominant desire there is to make sure things are done the right way. And we have to be very clear. It's not doing things the right way or make sure things are done or do things the right way. It's making sure that things are done the right way. So some executors are there's high energy to it. They're like, nope, I'm the one that completes the tasks. I get the job done. I'm the busy person. Check, check, check. They wake up with a scoreboard over their head, and every task that they do, it's like ding, 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 right? And other people with different executing strengths just want to make sure that things are done, but they're done the right way. And so somebody with high belief wants to make sure things are done a certain way. Somebody with high responsibility would feel that. No, sometimes high responsibility, they say, well, I should do it because I'm the only one that can make sure it's done the right way. Okay. So those are the 4 domains and strengths. And basically what you can do right now to know what you are or what your dominant domain is to count how many of each domain you have in your top 10. So if you have 3 or more, then that desire is very important. If it's 4 or more, it's extremely important. And then it's 5 plus, you're obsessed. You're obsessed with that.
And so for people like me, I actually have 3, 3, and 3. So I'm split between strategic, influencer, and executor. And so that means all 3 are very important to me.
Yeah. And we call those people, we're releasing this verbiage new with a program that we're doing, but we call those people chameleons. and basically they can shift and change based on the needs at the time. Cool. They're very good at adapting to like, oh no, right now I need to be this. So my strengths report, I'll just show you really quickly what my top and bottom look like. So you see right here, positivity, adaptability, and connectedness. 3 relationship building strengths right there in my top 10. And then it's like nothing. I don't have another relationship building strength until 15. But I've learned that relationship building is what I need to do first. It's the most energizing thing. It's energizing to be here on this kind of call, talking to you all with my high communication, rather than sitting in front of a computer, making sure that a funnel is built the right way, or that something's working, or responding to little tasks, little checklist things. I would much rather be doing this.
Do you want to speak a little bit about the driver? I remember Eddie talking about this and thinking it was so important, and that really shifted the way that I think about those top 5, especially, and that number 5.
Yeah, so that's another thing that Eddie teaches that Gallup doesn't is this is what we call the anchor strength. And
I love that yours is woo, by the way.
Well, and so this is
or not woo, strategic,
right? And so basically what the theory that he developed and then tested with thousands of different people was that when you look at a strengths report, these top 10 to 13 strengths are where you are energized. It's where you're excited. It's when you're enthusiastic. It's where you're inspired. Your bottom strengths are where you feel de-energized, uninspiring, unmotivated, and tired.
I tell people that's where they go when they're inauthentic or when they're trying to be somebody they're not.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so then what ends up happening is within the top 10, there is this like level of high energy and resistance just within the top 10. And so he discovered that with the number 5 strength, it was like this equal balance of energy towards it and resistance towards it. So we teach people that that's likely going to be your number 5 strength. Now, this is where I deviate from the doctrine of unleash your strengths, which we don't have any, but it took Eddie and I argued about this for months. I'm like, Eddie, strategic's not my anchor strength. I can guarantee you it. And he's like, yes, it is, because you're always doing this, and this. And I said, no, my anchor strength is actually connectedness. I have to start with a feeling of being connected to the divine nature of people in general, but also being connected to God. I've personally discovered that people with high connectedness generally, and I say generally because it's not 100% of the time, that they generally have a desire to be spiritual, not religious, not like faithful to a faith tradition, but spiritual. They like to be connected to their higher power, to God, however they define that. And so if I start with that, then everything else falls into place. And that's where I feel high energy and high resistance. And that's where I feel that dynamic, where sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want to take time to be meditative and ponder. I just want to get started. I just want to think. I just want to do what I want to do. Anyway, so.
I love that. And so what you're saying is that sometime probably between like the 4, 5, and 6, that one of those is probably their driver.
Yeah.
Okay. So how then, knowing this about themselves, if they're looking at their full strengths, then how do they do this? How do they actually implement this knowledge in their life and their business, and maybe even social media? Because this is a question I get a lot with my clients is, oh my gosh, I see everybody else doing like this thing on their social media, and that's just not me. Like, how do I show up on social media in a way that feels comfortable for me? I'm afraid of video, or I'm afraid of this and that or the other. How do they do this? How do they actually implement it?
That's such a timely question, because we just started we just began a mastery program within the Unleash Your Strengths community. And so every month we have a theme and a mastery topic. And it just so happens that social media is the mastery topic for the month of October. And we're building off of that. So we're going to go from social media to like messaging and marketing, and then into attraction marketing, and like our offers and things like that. But the first thing I did with people on Monday in our initial call on this topic was to find out first where you are when it comes to social media. Are you energized by it? Are you de-energized by it? So I'd like to just ask yourself right now, does social media energize you? Or are there a lot of shoulds and feelings like you're not doing it well enough, that you're struggling, you're doing it wrong? Okay. If you're feeling like it's working, then keep doing whatever you're doing. And you don't have to worry about learning about strengths right now. Just stay in momentum. But most of the people that we were working with were saying, no, I'm feeling lots of inauthenticity, and I'm not feeling like it's working. And so what I had them do, and actually I'll just share my screen and show you what it looked like. Give me a second to find this document. I wasn't quite prepared to share that. Okay. Okay. So we teach people first what we call a strengths liberation statement. And so this comes off of the dominant desires of your strengths report. But for me, my strengths liberation statement would say something like this: I love to be on social media in a way that honors my desire to connect with the right people and to create. I don't have to worry about hustling, being super disciplined and focused with my time or with my approach, or to compare myself to other people. Instead, I get to be enthusiastic, talk about the things that I'm working on, and be strategic about how I share those things. Okay. And so in saying that, I took my dominant desires of my report, and then I shared I don't have to worry about being. I shared a couple things about my bottom strengths: achiever, focus, discipline, competition. And then I used languaging from some of my top strengths: positivity, communication, strategic. Actually, woo is another one that is part of this. So basically, my goal for social media is just to be exciting and to be fun and to woo people with what I do. And honestly, I'll tell you right all up front, I haven't done that the last few months. I have this number 8 belief strength, and it means I'm a little stubborn, and it means that I have some core values. And right now, society is violating my core values like crazy. And, and I've shared that with a lot of people. A lot of people love that I speak out about it, and a lot of people don't. And so I just decided, okay, during the month of October, you know what? I'm going to set that on the shelf for a little bit. I'm just going to be fun and excitable. All right, so that's a step that you could take. And then the next thing I had people is like, what strengths do you want people to see from your interactions on social media? And when I chose the word interactions purposefully, because some people think that being intentional and being a creator or a contributor on social media means that you put up original posts. But what I inform people is like, hey, you don't have to be original, and you don't have to post things that you create. You can just comment authentically on what other people are doing. Like, that's your interaction, is just the comment. And I've seen people so effective, especially relationship builders, so effectively connect with people just by commenting and letting that person know they care about what was posted, versus just doing a passive scroll, right? Okay. In the Unleash Your Strengths community, we teach about judgy and accepting strengths. So that's a deep concept I won't get into right now, but there are some strengths that are very judgy. Belief is a judgy strength. Belief says, no, this is how it should be. Responsibility is a judgy strength. Achiever is a judgy strength. Positivity is a judgy strength, because positivity says, no, everything's happy. Everything is awesome. Everybody should be upbeat. And so I asked, we said, okay, well, establish a rule that you get to share. And so I was like, all right, well, if I have a rule about being upbeat and positivity is my number 1 strength, well, then guess what? I get to be upbeat. And then anyway, and then so we said, we have a different approach to goal setting in our community, where we say, hey, goals are targets, and you have unlimited arrows to hit your target. And that's especially effective for people who have low executing strengths. Goals scare them. Goals, sometimes they feel like they sacrifice relationships in favor of goals. So I asked people to set a target, and that could be like, my target was like, I just want 30 to 40 people to like each one of my posts. So I'm going to post things that are going to get 30 to 40 likes on each post, whatever. How do you want to feel about social media today that will last throughout the month? And one of the things that I shared on Monday with the group is we had this awesome event on September 7th in Salt Lake in conjunction with the doTERRA convention. And I told people, I was like, I want to feel on social media what I felt that day.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yeah. What's the best place for you to be energized on social media? Could be a certain social media platform. It could be certain groups within social media, within like Facebook. And then this one, what are you willing to give up in order to be a more conscious creator on social media? So, giving up the unconscious scroll, giving up the passive like. One person shared on the call, she's like, I just made a decision that if I was going to like something, that I also needed to comment on it and
Ooh.
show that person that I actually care about our relationship. And she's a relationship builder. So I'm like, awesome. If you're an influencer, you can do the same thing.
So
I want to help you. I want to help you move forward. I'm going to comment and comment your post.
I love that so much. So here's kind of that just made me think of this question. Those that are assistants on this call, where their clients are like, oh, I want to be present on social media, I just don't know what to do. Like, how can the assistant take this knowledge of strengths to support the client they're working for, to do it help their client do it in a way that's authentic? Because they're obviously supporting their clients to be present on social media or in any other task, really. How can they use this knowledge to dissect a plan with their client?
Like this is great. You get to channel that person, your boss's, for lack of a better word, your boss's strengths. What would they say? And if you know how their strengths work, like, you know what each one of those strengths, like, you'd say, oh, this is completely authentic of me to say this. If they're a high activator, it would be completely authentic for you to say, let's get moving, people. Let's get started. If they have low empathy, it would be completely inauthentic for you to be like, hey, I've just been really thinking a lot about the people that follow me and just wondering, how they're doing and if they're struggling. I see that a lot from influencers. I'm like, they are not like that. I know they're not like that.
Oh, that's so good. And as good as a copywriter, because sometimes assistants or social media managers are writing the copy sometimes for their clients, and knowing this about them, I think, is a good starting point. Like, what are their drivers, their motivations? Because if I write in a way that's not authentic to them, they're going to hate everything I write.
Exactly. Yeah. So I used to write Eddie's emails. That was one of my initial, like, okay, I'm the email guy now. And so I just like channel my inner Eddie. and that was easy. It was easy to be like, oh, this is how you talk. You totally say this and blah, blah, blah. But then in the comments, I mean, the same thing goes in the comments, so that when people say things, channel that person's strengths. And then as the assistant, you could even reach out to those people. And like, let's say you're working with somebody and they have low empathy, but you have high empathy. And, somebody comments and says something, you can reach out to them in a direct message and say, hey, this is so-and-so's assistant. And I was just really feeling what you said on such and such post. You are part of the team.
Ooh, I love that. That's like, yeah. I love that it's utilizing two people's strengths to sort of support another person rather than just relying on the one alone.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I mean, in this, so some of these top leaders will give the impression that they've got it all kind of together, that they do it all. But the reality is they don't do it all, and they have put together a wonderful team where, as a team, it's like you don't have a top 10 strengths. You end up having a top 34 strengths because you have people that fill all the gaps.
Ooh, that's so juicy. That's so powerful. So for those that, you're cute, Jamie, thank you. But that's my assistant. But for those that, since we're trying to figure out how to optimize this client-assistant relationship, what other tips do you have that can help, like, the assistant either better support the client, or the client better optimize their time with their assistant?
Yeah. So this goes both ways. And so in our team, in the Unleash Your Strengths management team, we put all of our strengths on a spreadsheet and we say, okay, who's got high, whatever. And we've recognized that there are just certain people that are better equipped to do certain things based on their strengths. And so I have now offloaded email to Eddie's assistant, because she is better about having a checklist to say, okay, Eddie just shared this thing on social media. I can type up some of the words from that video post, put it in the copy, and then I send it out, and every day I send out an email. But if you ask Steve Baer, hey, Steve, you got to make sure that every day you send out an email. I'm like, no, I don't feel like it.
And that's so powerful, because I feel like it's just so on point. And I feel like, so they're working with their assistant. So maybe a good way to start is, like you said, writing down each other's strengths and comparing them and seeing almost like overlapping. Here are my strengths, here are your strengths. And then having a conversation. What do you like to do? What energizes you? Where, what makes you the most happy when you're doing this kind of work, whether it's the client or assistant, so that the assistant can know, like, oh, well, they really hate doing these things. Maybe I can do those things, and kind of sharing the load a little bit and seeing what energizes each person. Because I feel like we really do our best work when we're in our strengths.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So, knowing what your strengths are, really understanding the strength, because I gotta point out something real quick. I'm going to share my screen again. That the words that Gallup uses for the strengths are not the dictionary definition. And so you'll see people who will say, oh, you've got low responsibility. That means you're not responsible. I'm like, you got low discipline. That means you're not disciplined. And it's like, that's not what it means. Low achiever doesn't mean that you can't achieve things. Achiever is a series of qualities that is lumped into one strength and given a word. And it doesn't have anything to do with achievement. Low empathy. I've had this, especially top leaders say, oh, I've got empathy so low. And I guess that means I don't really care about people. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. You care about people, but the way that you care is not by being, oh, tell me about that. Tell me more. How you feeling? Like that would be inauthentic for you. The way that you care is by moving people forward. It's by helping people stay on track. It's by.
That's huge. I was just gonna say that's almost like I feel like that unlocks one of the keys to the strengths, because so many people will use that as like a reason why they can't be so and so, like you said, where they show the strengths report like proof of why they can't do a certain thing. And sometimes when I try to talk to people and help them understand this, it's sort of a mind-blowing, like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. And so I really like that you've just emphasized that so clearly, that this doesn't mean you can't be that person. And it doesn't mean that you should, that that it's an excuse for like non-empathetic people maybe that say this. I actually know one person who has said, because I don't have empathy in my top strengths, it's okay that I'm coarse and callous to people. And I'm like, whoa, like that's a misunderstanding of the strengths.
Yeah, there's a strength called command, which means that you're really good at giving direction, and you're really good at taking control of a situation when things are out of control. And so people will be like, well, I've got high command, so I get to be bossy. No, it just means that if you have high command and you're in a situation where you see that there is not a leader, that you can step up and say, hey, what if we do this? How about we do this? Like hey, so-and-so, you do this, you do that, you do that. And it's easy for you to just jump in and take the lead. But it doesn't mean you do that all the time.
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
It's just like high positivity. Just because I have high positivity doesn't mean I go to a funeral and I'm like, hey, well, everything's good. Like, everything's awesome. We're positive.
Oh, so good. So good. I want to give a challenge to everybody today to go to do a few things. I would, for you or your clients and your assistants, go share your strengths with each other, and maybe have it printed in your office where you can clearly see what your strengths are, and then have a conversation around it and what that means for you, and even pull up some of the motivators of each theme. And I think that will really help you as you move forward in all things, that before you even enter into like a big project, talk about your strengths and how that's going to manifest in that. But not Eddie, Steve, I would love for you to share a little bit about your community and how people can get more of this, because this is really just like the tip of the iceberg that we've covered here. And there's so much more. Like, we've sort of kind of hit the highlights of main topics, but there's just so much more that people can use to optimize their strengths.
Yeah. So the Unleash Your Strengths community started on Facebook, and it started with Eddie just doing a bunch of videos and plopping them into a Facebook group and saying, here's me, and I'm talking, and it's awesome. And that worked for a while because Eddie is a great communicator. He's a great public speaker, and people enjoyed listening to what he had to say. And so over the last year, we've evolved the community so that it's actually a place of mastery, where you can come in, you can learn about your strengths, and then you can now interact with other people who are also learning about their strengths. They come to live training calls that we do, small group training calls that are available. And then if you are interested in self-directed learning, there are like 6 or 7 courses that is just there's hours and hours of content. And actually that's one of the pieces of feedback that we get is like, there is so much juicy information here. Where do we start? And so we've made that part easy. Well, you start here and you start going through this self-directed place. The Unleash Your Strengths community, you can join by going to unleashyourstrengths.com. We have a monthly membership, which is $79 a month, or an annual membership, which is $697. If you feel like it's supportive with you in your relationship with your with the people that you support, that it's important for you to understand strengths and have access to a wonderful library that will help you stay in your strengths, help you keep your client in their strengths, and then give you the resources that you need, then joining the community is a wonderful opportunity to not only connect with people, but to learn with them. But we also have self-directed things. And so we have a basic Unleash Your Strengths course that is not part of the community that you can access for $100. I'll put that in the chat here. It's just unleashyourstrengths.net/course.
And you do group coaching as well, don't you? So if like one of the leaders on the call today are like, I would really benefit from having Steve or Eddie or someone come join my team and break apart some of our strengths together, what does that look like?
Yeah, so Eddie doesn't do many group calls anymore, but like you could hire me to come in to do a training with the top leader and their leaders, where we kind of pair each other's strengths reports together, talk about how they interact with one another. And I can do half day trainings for a whole team. I think our rate for the half day trainings are like $500, just to have all in one, boom, here it is. And yeah, actually, I mean, that's where the adaptability comes in for me. So it's like, you just tell me what you need and we can figure out something that fits the budget, meets the needs of the team, and satisfies the time constraints that you have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I feel like me knowing my strengths, and I actually had a private session with Eddie like a year ago, and it was so helpful to get that understanding of where things were chafing in my life and business, and to sort of get clarity on like, it was really funny because he's like, why do you feel like you have to do that? I'm like, well, because. He's like, but why? And I feel like understanding really that core of who I am has shifted my life and business in a really powerful way. This isn't just like a personality profiling tool. This really has shifted how I think about myself and how I interact with my family and my business. And so wherever you are in your life, like I feel like that understanding strengths is really key, and knowing how you can optimize your strengths and the people around you. You start to see people in a different way. Like before, I used to see people that were, what's the one, the R one, the one, say what?
Relator?
No, not relator. The one, and I actually had restorative. I used to look at people who had restorative as like what course callous people they are, but now I recognize where they are, where really that's actually a really powerful strength, where they can see things that I don't see, and to call attention to things that need to be called attention to. And I see people more empathetically, even though that's not one of my top strengths. So I think knowing who you're working with and seeing their strengths really is a powerful tool. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close today?
Only other thing that I want to say is the strength, like understanding your strengths is a journey that is worth embarking on.
Mhm.
And some people don't embark on the journey because they feel like there's so much to it. But anything that is like any journey of personal growth and development is always going to require some level of investment on your part, not only in time, I mean, in money, but in time. And it will always pay off. It will always pay off for you to be in a space where you're energized by the work that you do, because you're working with people who know who you are. They know your strengths. They know what your bottom strengths are. And all they do is affirm who you are based on their new knowledge of your strengths report. It's 1,000% worth it. And it's been a joy to work with Eddie because he constantly affirms who I am and doesn't ask me to be something that I'm not.
And you know what? It's interesting. I've seen a lot of even like parents getting into their strengths, even if they don't have a business or anything, and they get into their strengths, and suddenly their marriages are stronger. I feel like a more confident mom instead of comparing themselves to everybody else that they think that they have to be doing life this way. And so it really is like a holistic view of life, understanding who you are, not trying to compare, not trying to do it in a way that's inauthentic to you. And so I encourage everybody to have whatever serves you to kind of explore strengths a little bit more deeply, because you'll see effects in all areas of your life. So thank you so much, Steve. We just
Thank
so
you, Megan.
appreciate you sharing your time with us today. And we'll send out some meeting notes for those that are watching the meeting as a recording, and those live today, so that you have all the juicy things that we talked about. Thank you so much, Steve.
You're very welcome.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.